Imagine, if you will, the mightiest civilization of men, untouched by shadow of folly. Númenor, a jewel of the Second Age, was gifted to the Edain by the Valar in the year 32 of the Second Age. It was a land of unparalleled beauty and abundance, bestowed as a reward for their valor in the wars against Morgoth during the First Age. The Númenorians were elevated above all other men, both in lifespan and wisdom, their rulers descending directly from Elros, the half-elven brother of Elrond, who chose mortality. However, despite their gifts, the seeds of ambition and pride would later lead them to defy the Valar, resulting in the catastrophic downfall of Númenor in 3319 of the Second Age. But let us turn to a different thread in the music of the Ainur, a harmonious note unbroken by dissonance. What if the Númenorians had heeded the wisdom of the Valar, rejecting Sauron's lies and remaining faithful? What heights might they have reached? The implications ripple across the ages like waves across the vast seas that surrounded their island. If the Númenorians had resisted Sauron's whispers, their society might have grown to eclipse even its legendary state. Without the poisoned longing for immortality, their pursuits would likely have remained aligned with the gifts of the Valar: architecture, law, and exploration. Númenor might have become a cultural and spiritual hub, akin to Valinor but for mortal men. Consider their naval prowess. Númenorian mariners already explored vast swaths of the known world, their ships unrivaled. Without the taint of colonialism that marked their later years, they might have served as true stewards of Middle-earth, spreading knowledge, healing its wounds from Morgoth's corruption, and fostering alliances among its peoples. Imagine Númenorian scholars preserving and disseminating elven knowledge to the realms of men and dwarves, uniting the free peoples against the growing shadow in the east. Furthermore, without the devastation wrought by the downfall, Númenor's bloodlines would have remained pure and unbroken. The Dunedain, who in our timeline struggled as dwindling remnants in Arnor and Gondor, might have become the foremost defenders of Middle-earth, their numbers vast, their strength unyielding. Could the might of such a realm have withstood even Sauron's later dominion? A faithful Númenor would have presented a significant obstacle to Sauron. In the historical timeline, Sauron exploited the Númenorians' pride, convincing them to invade Valinor itself in 3319. This act of supreme hubris triggered the Valar to call upon Eru Ilúvatar, who reshaped the world and sank Númenor beneath the sea. Without this betrayal, Sauron would have been deprived of a key element in his long-term strategy. In this alternate scenario, Sauron might have been forced to retreat into the shadows, unable to conquer Middle-earth as swiftly. The Númenorian navy, unbroken and uncorrupted, could have launched preemptive strikes against Mordor, perhaps even preventing the forging of the One Ring in 1600 of the Second Age. Picture a united front of Númenor and Gil-galad's elves, their combined might bringing about a decisive end to Sauron's ambitions long before the Third Age. But even deeper questions arise. Would Númenor's fidelity have altered the fates of the Rings of Power? Without Númenor's fall, could Celebrimbor have found allies to guard the Three and resist Sauron's assault on Eregion in 1697? Could the One Ring itself have remained hidden in Sauron's forges, its power unrealized? The unshaken faith of Númenor would have had profound implications for its relationship with the Eldar and the Valar. Historically, as the Númenorians fell under Sauron's sway, they abandoned their ancient friendship with the elves of Tol Eressëa and Lindon. But in this alternate thread, the bond would have endured. Imagine a Númenor where the white ships of the Eldar continued to dock at the havens of Andúne, exchanging gifts of wisdom, music, and lore. The Númenorians, guided by the teachings of the Eldar, might have achieved a deeper understanding of Eru Ilúvatar's design, their culture enriched by spiritual insight rather than hollow ambition. The alliance with Gil-galad, the last High King of the Noldor, would have remained steadfast, In our timeline, it was Elendil and his exiled followers who forged an alliance with Gil-galad to defeat Sauron during the War of the Last Alliance in 3441 of the Second Age. But a faithful Númenor, at the height of its power, could have formed this coalition far earlier, thwarting Sauron before he could consolidate his dominion over Middle-earth. Nephisids watched the world closely and began to see how its householders had fled the world through unnatural means, like Nustafalls from Gil-galad, to defeat Sauron during the War of the Last Alliance in 3600 early on. With Númenor's strength allied to the elves, the siege of Barad-dûr might have been shorter and less costly. Perhaps Gil-galad and Elendil would not have fallen, leaving their realms stronger as Middle-earth transitioned into the Third Age. The strength of Númenor's armies, unmarred by the downfall, could have endured as a lasting bulwark against future threats, including the rising of Angmar and the eventual return of Sauron. To comprehend the true depth of this alternate timeline, one must look beyond mere military or political outcomes and into the spiritual harmony of Middle-earth. Númenor's fall was not merely a physical catastrophe. It was a metaphysical wound in the fabric of Arda. The downfall echoed Melkor's original discord in the music of the Ainur, as it represented the rebellion of Eru's children against the divine order. In our alternate reality, Númenor's steadfastness would have been a triumph of Eru's vision. The music would have flowed more seamlessly. The dissonance introduced by Melkor, and later amplified by Sauron, tempered by Númenor's faithfulness. It is tempting to wonder whether such harmony might have hastened the mending of Ardamad, the prophecy that at the end of days, all the wounds inflicted upon the world will be healed. Furthermore, Númenor's spiritual fidelity might have served as an example to other realms of men. In our timeline, the faithful, those Númenorians who rejected Sauron, became a persecuted minority, their traditions preserved by Elendil and his sons after the downfall. But in this alternate thread, Númenor's righteousness would have inspired other mortal kingdoms, strengthening their resistance to corruption and aligning them more closely with the designs of the Valar. Yet even in this brighter scenario, challenges remain. The second prophecy of Mandos foretells a final confrontation with Melkor at the end of the world. Would Númenor's fidelity have delayed this inevitable reckoning, or merely altered its shape? Perhaps Sauron, deprived of Númenor's betrayal, would have sought subtler ways to sow discord, exploiting the weaknesses of lesser realms. Moreover, while Númenor's salvation would have been a great victory, the long shadow of Morgoth's influence would still linger. The curse of Feanor, the unrest of the dwarves, and the fragmented loyalties of men would present ongoing challenges. Even in the most harmonious thread of history, Ardamad could not be fully healed until the end of all things. This leads us to ponder the cost of Númenor's triumph. By rejecting Sauron, the Númenorians would have altered the balance of power in Middle-earth. Yet power, no matter how righteous, carries risks. Would Númenor's unchecked dominance have led to new forms of hubris? Might their stewardship have grown into hegemony, even without Sauron's lies? In this alternate timeline, where Númenor did not fall to Sauron's lies, their unbroken legacy may have positioned them as the chosen instruments to destroy the One Ring. The Númenorians' unrivaled might, wisdom, and alliance with the Eldar could have made them the most capable force to face Sauron and his masterwork. Imagine a great war led by a Númenorian king, a direct descendant of Elros, who arises at the height of Númenor's power. This leader, noble and unyielding, is chosen by both prophecy and the Council of the Valar to lead the free peoples in a final assault on Mordor. The campaign would be long and arduous, echoing the War of the Last Alliance, but with Númenor's full might intact, its forces at their zenith. To win, the Knights of... Through their alliance with the Elves, the Númenorians would wrest the One Ring from Sauron, likely even earlier than in the canonical timeline. Yet, here lies the twist. It is not Isildur who falters, but this exalted king of Númenor himself. The very perfection and might of Númenor, which were preserved by their faith, could become the source of his downfall. Unlike the original betrayal of the Valar, this Númenorian corruption would stem from a more insidious source: the belief in their destiny as the supreme stewards of Middle-earth. The Númenorian king, gazing upon the ring, might reason that it is a gift meant for them, not as a tool of destruction, but as a means to solidify their eternal guardianship. The seductive power of the One Ring works upon even the purest intentions, bending them into shadows of their former selves. This king, whose mind had been sharpened by Númenorian wisdom, and whose will had been fortified by centuries of unbroken loyalty, might begin to justify keeping the ring. He could argue that its power, wielded by Númenor, would ensure peace and prosperity for all of Arda. And so, as the fires of Mount Doom roar in anticipation, the king would hesitate. His advisors, Númenorians and elves alike, would plead with him to fulfill the task. But the whispers of the ring, always cunning, would speak louder. The king might even believe himself immune to its corruption. A tragic hubris born from centuries of Númenor's unmatched greatness. If this corruption takes hold, Númenor's fate might tragically mirror its historical downfall. The king, claiming the ring as his own, would bring the Númenorian people into an age of tyranny and decay. Their island kingdom, once preserved by loyalty to the Valar, could be undone not by external betrayal, but by the rot of pride within. The implications for Middle-earth would be staggering. With the ring in Númenor's possession, Sauron would no longer be its master, but the corruption of the ring would continue to work its poison. Númenor, exalted above all, might become the very empire it once sought to protect Middle-earth from, a dark dominion whose shadow spread across the lands. The faithfulness of Númenor in this scenario becomes both its salvation and its curse. Their exalted position sets the stage for a more profound tragedy. While Sauron's immediate power might be thwarted, the deeper corruption of the ring would still manifest, now with Númenor as its vessel. The Valar, perhaps hesitant to intervene directly again after the reshaping of the world, might leave Númenor to its fate. This act could serve as a sobering lesson to all of Eru's children. Even the mightiest can fall, and no one, not even the blessed Númenorians, can safely wield the power of the One Ring. In this bleak turn of events, Númenor, now wielding the One Ring, would cast its shadow across Middle-earth. Its once noble purpose as a protector of the free peoples would transform into domination. The Númenorian king, corrupted by the ring's whispers, would see himself as a god-king, destined to rule not only men, but elves, dwarves, and all creatures under the sun. His claim would echo Melkor's hubris, to challenge the designs of Eru Ilúvatar himself. The Númenorian fleets, which once explored the world in friendship, would now serve as vessels of conquest. Númenor's architecture, once a reflection of their harmony with nature and reverence for the Valar, would be replaced with monolithic fortresses and citadels, meant to inspire awe and fear. The faithful, those who would oppose this tyrant, might find themselves hunted, their only refuge the far shores of Middle-earth, much as Elendil and his sons were after the downfall. This new Númenorian empire, armed with the One Ring, would outmatch Sauron's original ambitions. The tyrant king might attempt to bring even the elves under his sway, driving them further into seclusion. Dwarven strongholds would be besieged, and kingdoms of men either subjugated or obliterated. Despite Númenor's overwhelming power, the free peoples of Middle-earth would not submit without a fight. A coalition could form. Elves from Rivendell and Lindon, dwarves from Khazad-dûm, and men from regions like Arnor and Rhovanion. Leaders such as Gil-galad and Elrond, though their forces would be vastly outnumbered, would call upon the wisdom of the Valar and their own ancient strength to resist. The faithful Númenorians, now exiled, might lead this resistance. Figures akin to Elendil and Isildur would rise again, rallying the oppressed against their former homeland. These exiles would carry the memories of Númenor's lost glory, inspiring others to join the fight for freedom. This resistance would mirror the War of the Last Alliance, but with Númenor itself as the enemy. The Free Peoples would face an opponent far greater than Sauron alone, a Númenor whose armies were not only vast but also disciplined, whose leader bore the power of the One Ring. Told to us by Thomas Hampson, the inevitable climax would come when the corrupted king's dominion threatened to engulf all of Arda. The Valar, who once reshaped the world to halt Númenor's invasion of Valinor, might again plead with Eru Ilúvatar for intervention. In this scenario, however, Eru's response might be subtler, allowing the children of Ilúvatar to play a decisive role. In an act of desperation, the coalition of free peoples might seek to destroy the One Ring once more. This task could fall to an unlikely hero, a remnant of Númenor's faithful, whose humility contrasts with the hubris of their king. This individual would embody the lesson that greatness is not defined by power, but by the willingness to relinquish it. The final confrontation might occur not in Mordor, but on Númenorian soil. The ring, once a symbol of their might, could instead become the instrument of their undoing. As the faithful hero casts it into fire, the land itself, so long corrupted by the king's tyranny, might erupt in a cataclysm akin to Númenor's original downfall. The island kingdom could sink beneath the waves, its splendor forever lost to the sea. In the aftermath, Middle-earth would be irrevocably changed. The Free Peoples, though victorious, would remain haunted by the knowledge of Númenor's fall. Not once, but twice. The survivors of the faithful might rebuild, their wisdom tempered by humility, much like the Dunedain of Arnor and Gondor in the original timeline. The elves, their trust in men shaken, might retreat further from the world. The dwarves, though resilient, would fortify their halls against any future threat. And the realms of men would scatter, their unity forever marked by the cautionary tale of Númenor, that even the mightiest can be undone by ambition. In the end, Númenor's tragedy serves as a reflection of Middle-earth itself, a world marred by the discord of Melkor, yet still striving for harmony. This alternate tale reminds us that while fate can be delayed, the flaws of Arda cannot be fully healed until the world is remade in the final music of the Ainur. Would the Númenorians ever truly escape the shadow of their potential? Perhaps that is the greatest question of all.